Welcome everybody. This is the next exam prep live stream. I'll tell you what, I try to be as punctual as possible. I launch these at noon, and 11:59 to noon has to be the longest minute of my life as I try to get this stuff going. Let me check my stream health. Here we are. Okay, we're looking excellent. Chat is open, the live chat is open, and we are here to do the grades 4 and 5 wastewater exam prep. This is a practice test style. I'm going to go through some ground rules here in a minute. This is also for you Class A folks out there. Any high-level exams, we're mostly going to be going over process control. There are a few regulatory things I'm going to talk about. RJ's in the chat. Man, you hit right on the nose, dude. And I got your email. I will email you back, but I read it a little while ago. I think that's a great idea, and I'll get back to you, RJ. And then Greg says, you're awesome for doing this. Thank you, Greg. I'm happy to do it. I just, my one thing is pay it forward and share the videos. I wish this was there for me when I was preparing. And RJ says, just past the one, ready for some more. All right, well, hopefully you're ready for a headache, because that might be what's coming your way. This is a big one. Let's see if I can go to the next slide. I'm going to do my little introduction here for those who are coming through this live stream or this replay later and don't know me. My name is Shawn Powell. I am a grade 5 California wastewater treatment plant operator and chief plant operator of my wastewater plant. I'm also a grade D3 and T2 drinking water operator and the chief operator of the drinking water system for my town. I have passed at this point 9 state exams, the D2, D3, T2, T3 on the drinking water side, and then grades 1 through 5 on the wastewater side. And I kind of know how it goes in these exams. I've taken the written versions and the computer-based versions, so I've seen them all, and I am doing my best to kind of pass on some of that experience for y'all that are kind of they get test anxiety, you're not quite sure what to expect, and this can kind of give you an example of what to expect, but also kind of prepare you for that exam. I'm looking in the live chat here. Greg says, I did share your videos with my boss, and now he makes people watch your videos before sitting for tests. Oh, that's really, what a great compliment. Thank you, Greg, and thank you to your boss. That's a huge compliment. And I'm starting to hear more and more of this, that people are really digging the videos, and we just launched a video with ADEQ earlier this week for how to become a certified operator in Arizona, and I learned that some higher level people in that agency actually are big fans of the channel, and that's very humbling and kind of scary, because from my perspective, I'm just this dude that's just putting videos together trying to help out. So it's really cool. It's what this is kind of turning into. So let's get into some of this stuff. Disclaimers and recommendations. Just like my other ones, I've done a grades 1 and 2. I've done a grade 3 and grades 1 and 2 Class C. I've done a grades 3 Class B version of this. And now we're on the 4 and 5, and I've done a terminology for the grades 1 and 2, and I'm working on the terminology. I think it's going to be for a 3 through 5, so I could just do one big one. The terms don't change dramatically between the 3, 4, and 5 or the Class B and A. It's how the questions are asked that is different. And so I always do this disclaimer and recommendation, because what I don't want people to do is take these little practice tests that I come up with and then think that you're ready for the test. That's not how you're supposed to use practice exams, okay? So just real quick, I want to run through this stuff. Tests rotate. There is never a guarantee of what you will be asked. There are multiple versions of these tests in every state, and just because you went and took it and you failed and you think you now know what's on the test, you go back, you might be sitting for a different version of that test, okay? So just bear that in mind. States will differ on their regulations and difficulty levels. Check your local need-to-know criteria. It's pretty common that the Class B and the grade 3 is pretty on par, but there might be some grade 2 questions that's on the B. There might be some grade 3 questions that's on the A. There's a little bit of crossover, so just kind of look at all the different things that I'm trying to put out there. I'm coming from a California perspective, so I'm just doing my best to help the best way I can. So just but double check your need-to-know criteria. Now, regarding Title 22, there's going to be a question or two on here about Title 22, California regs, and management questions. I will tell you when. This is a very California-specific question. Okay, I'm going to get to a multiple-choice question, and it will be something that you people in Georgia or Ohio or New Hampshire or wherever, it might not apply to you, because Title 22 is a California regulation. What I will tell you when we get to that question is you need to look up your own reclaimed water regs. They might be different, okay? California regulations, kind of the same thing. I'm going to have a regulatory agency question. But it will get you thinking about what you need to know for your state. And then management questions. We don't have management questions on the grades 4 and 5. So those of you looking for Class A management questions, I will direct you to a gentleman on Vimeo named Ron Triger. He has a very long, I think it's like an hour and a half video, free. You can just go on Vimeo, watch, and he goes through a management slideshow. And that is where I will point people who want management questions. There will be no management questions today, okay? If you are fuzzy on any topic discussed today, study it thoroughly. Practice tests are to give you an idea of what will be asked. Please do not memorize all these and think you're ready for the test. I've kind of already said that, but when you improperly use practice tests, you're setting yourself up for failure. These are just to tease out weaknesses. Like I'm gonna ask you a question and you go, I didn't even know about ORPs, or I didn't even think about biosolids. Like it's to make you kind of just consider things that you might not have considered, and get a study plan and stick to it. 30 minutes to an hour per day, and start as soon as possible before your exam. Now I'm gonna check the chat. Let's see what we got here. Tree Trunk, you made it. Nice to see you. Howdy. I responded to your email. And yeah, so if you wanna look at that, have a good vacation, Tree Trunk. And Frank Don't Love It, he says afternoon. Good afternoon, Frank. Okay, let's get to the next slide. So this is the first and only time I'm gonna mention essays, because they differ from state to state. You will be given scenarios and ask specific questions about those scenarios. Pay close attention to what they are asking. People miss the essay questions because they're largely reading comprehension questions. They're not necessarily overly difficult. They take a lot of time to kind of go through. They set a premise, and then they might ask 2 or 3 questions off the premise they have set up. They'll give you this whole scenario about you have a wastewater treatment plant and I don't know, pick a thing. It could be anything from a mechanical issue to a pump, pump rate to nitrification. It could be all sorts of stuff. So just, I feel like you don't need to know a crazy amount more than you needed for the 3, but you do need to know some like more nuanced detail, but slow down and read what they're asking you, okay? It's very important. And oftentimes, some of those answers are literally in the scenario they created for you, okay? If you are taking a written essay exam and you don't know the answer, just start writing stuff. Seriously, I'm serious about that. Not random stuff, but stuff that is relevant to what they're asking you. And this is why I think the old way, like Michigan still does written. I know that because I talked to an operator out in Michigan. He just passed his Class A, congrats to him. And he was telling me you have to write it all out. And I would prefer that over what happens in California now, which is you are given what's called multiple choice essay, which is I'm gonna talk about in a second. And you've gotta choose one of the options they give you. I would much rather have a freestyle option, because if I'm kind of unsure about what they're asking, in the old days, you'd be able to just start writing stuff and kind of poke at it a little bit. The act of writing might jog your memory. But then what ends up happening is, even if your memory's not jogged, and say they ask a question about nitrification, and you just start writing what you know about nitrification and what you might do in this situation, and they see that the graders see that you understand the science, but you might not be understanding what they're asking, you would have received partial credit in the old days. That is no more, okay? You don't get partial credit anymore in California and other places where it's all just multiple choice. So that gets me to, if you are taking multiple choice essay, it's all about critical thinking and reading comprehension. Be very careful with the options they give you. And I have purposely built this next series of multiple choice questions to be overly difficult, to get you to think a little bit, to slow down. And that's really, in my experience, what those essay questions have been. And I have gone back through the multiple choice essay, which, by the way, so there's no confusion on what a multiple choice essay is. It's a scenario just like a normal essay is, but it's just long multiple choice answers. It's not, you're not writing an essay. There is no essay anymore. They just call it multiple choice essay. And they're just longer answers, and they could have Easter eggs and traps in them. And I don't care for that, because if you miss it, you miss it. You don't get partial credit by starting to write stuff, So yeah, be very, very careful with the options they give you. Hold on one sec, I just got a notification. I wanna make sure It's not nothing I need to, oh, okay. Sorry about that. I am on a lunch break, but I'm also at work, and I got an email, and sometimes I get alarms to emails, so I just wanted to keep an eye on that. Okay, so that's my essay tips and pros. Anybody out there who is a grade 5 and watching this, throw in the live chat, throw in the comments if you're watching the replay, give your tips for the essay in your state. People will be watching this replay for a long time. My grade 1 and 2 version of this is approaching 4,000 views already, guys. It's a huge success of a video, and the grade 3 is hitting probably today going to cross the 2,000 view threshold. So people are watching these, and if you are just watching passively, you've already passed all these tests, and you think I can have said something better or whatnot, you think you have something to add, throw it in the comment or the live chat. Let's get into it. With all that premise set up, we're going to start with the multiple choice. And I had to actually write my own answer key because as I was going through, I built a lot of these questions over a long period of time, and I wrote them in such a way that I even confused myself going back through. So I had to make sure I don't screw up on this. It's live, you know. Okay, question 1. And feel free to pop an answer in the chat. There's about a 7-second lag between when I say something and you hear it. So if you want to, I didn't number these, but if you want to participate, throw something in the chat, and then if you have a question, throw it in the chat. I can see everything. Greg, by the way, says, to be fair, I am 50 of those views on the Class 2 study guide. Well, Greg, I appreciate the 50 views. That does count people that go back and watch it. That's not 4,000 individuals that have seen it. Thank you for pointing that out, Greg. Which of the following statements is true about polymer use in wastewater treatment? A, cationic polymers are negatively charged and are typically used to improve settling in primary clarifiers. B, polymers work best when added to at the highest possible dose, ensuring complete charge neutralization and maximum flock formation. C, when conditions in a plant change throughout the day, jar tests are relatively ineffective at helping an operator determine the proper dose of polymer. Or D, anionic polymers are the preferred choice for bonding hydroxide sludge formed in a primary clarifier by ferric chloride or aluminum sulfate. Those are your options. I'm not going to read them again. But what I will do for your benefit is I'm going to go through one of these answers at a time, and I'm going to show you which one's true and which one's false. A is false. That is not true. Cationic polymers are positively charged. Okay. B is not true. So X on A. B is not true. You do not want polymers added at the most turbulent place. You want gentle mixing. So B is not true when you're using polymer. C, jar tests are incredibly effective on the fly when you're trying to determine proper dose when things are dynamic. You would be doing jar tests. So C is incorrect. D is the correct answer. Anionic polymers are the preferred choice. And why is that? Because ferric chloride and aluminum sulfate create hydroxide sludge that is positively charged. Anionic polymers are negatively charged, okay? So you would use ferric and aluminum sulfate are positively charged coagulants, but when you're following up with a flocculant or a polymer, and you got to watch it, if you're creating enough sludge that's positively charged, you're going to swing to the positive. And if you use a cationic polymer, it's not going to be nearly as effective as an anionic polymer. Remember, it's all about that charge neutralization. So the correct answer in this scenario is D. Which of the following statements about nitrification is true? A, nitrifying bacteria require dissolved oxygen to convert ammonia to nitrate, and nitrification rates decrease sharply when DO falls below 2 milligrams per liter. B, nitrification is an anaerobic process that occurs most efficiently when dissolved oxygen is kept below 0.5 milligrams per liter. C, nitrifying bacteria grow faster than most heterotrophic bacteria, allowing them to dominate the mixed liquor under low SRT conditions. D, nitrification produces alkalinity, which helps stabilize pH in activated sludge systems. And one thing I didn't do on this, just to keep it as simple as possible without being too overly complicated, but I want this to be complicated but not overly complicated. You will run into a lot of none of the aboves, okay? And sometimes none of the above is the correct answer. Be very careful with those. I think on my 4, I had one that I believe I will go die on that hill that none of the above was correct, and at least one on my 5 that none of the above was correct. But I didn't do any of those on this, just letting you know, be ready for that. So let's go through these. A, nitrifying bacteria require dissolved oxygen to convert ammonia to nitrate, and nitrification rates decrease sharply when DO falls below 2 milligrams per liter. That is correct. The correct answer is A. B, nitrification is an anaerobic process. Absolutely no way. It's an aerobic process. You need a lot of air. Okay, so that's wrong. Nitrifying bacteria grow faster than heterotrophic. Absolutely not. Nitrifying bacteria are autotrophic and they grow significantly slower. And the other bad part is low SRT. You need high SRT or MCRT conditions. Okay. Nitrification produces alkalinity? No way. It consumes it. So that's wrong as well. So A is the correct answer. Next one. Which of the following statements about polymer use in clarification is not true? They do this to you as well. Not true. A, polymers can improve settling by neutralizing particle charge, allowing suspended solids to form larger, denser flock. B, excessive polymer addition can cause sludge blankets to rise because overdosing may create buoyant, gelatinous flock that traps gas. C, polymers are typically added at points of high turbulence to ensure rapid dispersion and maximum flock formation. D, the effectiveness of a polymer can change when the influent wastewater characteristics shift, even if the polymer product and dose remain constant. So, A, polymer can improve settling. Is that true or not true? By neutralizing particle charge? That is true. Yep, so that is not a correct answer because we are asking for which is not true. So it's not A. B, excessive polymer addition can cause sludge blankets to rise. Yes, that is true, so that is not a correct answer. If you overdose polymer, if you've ever used it, it's like slick and slippery and slimy and very dense. So if you overdose, you can create like not an impermeable, but a very hard to permeate bubble of sludge. And if it stays in the clarifier too long, the gas bubbles can't release from it and it just floats the whole thing. Okay, so that would happen. Polymers are typically added at points of high turbulence. We already went over this. That is absolutely false. So C is your correct answer. You do not add polymers at points of high turbulence. Gentle mixing. And the effective the D is a true statement. I'm not going to read it again, but you can come back and look at that if you want. Yeah, so D is true, so it is not the correct answer. So C is the correct answer. Next one. All right, this is one of those Title 22 guys. So if you're doing reclaimed water, look your own state's rules up. Under California Title 22 regulations, which requirement best defines the treatment and performance criteria for disinfected tertiary recycled water intended for unrestricted urban use? A, secondary treatment followed by chlorination achieving a total coliform limit of 23 mpn per 100 milliliter. B, filtration and UV disinfection achieving a 2 log virus reduction and turbidity of less than or equal to 5 NTU. C, coagulation, filtration, and disinfection achieving a median turbidity of less than 2 NTU and a 5 log virus reduction. D, primary clarification, filtration, and chlorination achieving a median turbidity of less than 5 or equal to 5 NTU. Which one of these best defines? So I like the best defines because it's the best answer. 3 of these are absolute non-starters. Only one of them could be possibly true. But sometimes, and I've got some of them on here, sometimes you're gonna get very, very similar and plausible answers, and you need to choose the best of those answers, okay? This is not one of those scenarios, but they're coming for you. A is not true, no way. You need way less coliform than 23 mpn for unrestricted urban use. Filtration and UV disinfection 2 log, nope. 2 log is too low, and less than or equal to 5 NTU is too high, okay? That is your high point, your one-time hit. You're allowed up to that if you get like something like in a day, you're allowed up to 5, but your median needs to be less than or equal to 2 NTU and a 5 log virus inactivation. So C is your correct answer, okay? And D is also wrong. Less than or equal to 5 NTU is the giveaway. Median is less than or equal to 2 NTU and a 5 log virus inactivation. We go over to the chat. I got something in here. MD2NC Fisherman says, I start my first wastewater job soon. None of this really makes sense to me, but it is really interesting to watch. Yeah, it's not gonna. It's gonna be like a fire hose. I'll call you a fisherman. It's gonna be like a fire hose if you're just getting ready to start. This is advanced stuff that takes a long time to kind of understand. And if you haven't seen my other live streams, fishermen, go look at the earlier ones. Check out the terminology. Check out the grades 1 and 2 test prep. It's kind of it's a lighter weight version of this, much lighter weight. Okay, this is a fun one. During summer months, operators observe rising effluent nitrite while TAN levels in the mixed liquor are low, around 2 milligrams per liter. Aeration basin pH has increased from 7.2 to 7.9. What is the most likely cause of the nitrite the nitrite effluent. Probably, the way I wrote that's kind of confusing now that I read it out loud. What is the most likely cause of the nitrite in the effluent is what I'm getting at here. A, excess dissolved oxygen causing inhibition of AOBs, ammonia oxidizing bacteria. B, low sludge age, reducing the population of AOBs. C, free ammonia toxicity, inhibiting nitrite oxidizing bacteria. D, carbon overload causing heterotrophic outcompetition of nitrifiers. So let's go through these one by one. A, excess dissolved oxygen inhibition of AOBs. No, that's not a thing. There's nothing. Excess dissolved oxygen isn't necessarily going to cause inhibition of AOBs. So no. Low sludge age, reducing the population of AOBs. Okay, even if that were the case, our ammonia is at a 2. So it normally comes in at the lowest I've ever seen is a 20. I'd say about a 40 is about normal for here anyway. So if I'm at a 2 in a mixed liquor, my AOBs are still working. We're still oxidizing ammonia, right? C, so B is wrong. C, free ammonia toxicity inhibiting nitrite oxidizing bacteria. Yes, that is correct. Even though the ammonia is low, the two giveaways on this are summer months and your increased pH. This is the lookup, and I still have to do a video about this on my channel. The ammonia equilibrium. The higher the temperatures, the higher the pH, more ammonium converts to ammonia, okay? And NOBs are very sensitive little guys, okay? The AOBs are a little bit more stout. So even as concentration, as low as 1 milligram per liter of free ammonia can inhibit NOBs, the nitrite oxidizing bacteria that convert nitrite to nitrate. Be aware of this. Be very familiar with the ammonium-ammonia equilibrium and at what pHs and temperatures you would shift from ammonium to ammonia. And just another thing to be aware of in the summer months, you might see tighter ammonia limits, TAN limits anyway, total nitrogen, because the ammonium is in an aqueous solution. The ammonia is typically a gas. So at those higher pHs and temperatures, you're gonna have more ammonia gas, which kill fish. It goes through the gills, where the ammonium would not get into the bloodstream of the fish. So that's you should really know that for your higher level stuff. D, carbon overload causing heterotrophic outcompetition of nitrifiers. No, because the reason D is wrong is because we are nitrifying partially. We're getting to nitrite. So I wouldn't think carbon overload's the problem. C would be your answer. Let me check the chat here. Turnburn says, studying for my C license for Florida. Always appreciate the info. Absolutely, Turnburn. I'll tell you guys what, if you understand this level of wastewater, I would think the C would be a cakewalk for you, okay? Although there are some things that might be asked about that you need to know for your 2 that's kind of assumed you know for your 4 or 5 or your C, need to know for your C versus your A. When I was in martial arts, there was a saying that a 4th degree black belt has forgotten more than a 1st degree black belt knows, okay? So some of the entry level folks will remind some of us more advanced people of the simplicity of things that we might have forgotten, right? But when we get to this level, it's like assumed you kind of understand, and it's almost second nature that a lot of this is instinctual, All right, next one. A fully nitrifying activated sludge plant experiences rising effluent ammonia even though DO is maintained above 3 milligrams per liter and MLSS is stable. Which condition most likely explains the loss of AOB activity? A, low alkalinity causing pH depression below the optimal nitrification range. B, excessive sludge age leading to endogenous decay of nitrifiers. C, elevated nitrite levels inhibiting nitrite oxidizing bacteria or NOBs. D, high F to M ratio increasing heterotrophic oxygen demand. So let's get through these. A, low alkalinity causing pH depression below the optimal nitrification range is correct. Your answer is A. If your pH drops too low, anything less than a 6.8, the AOBs really start slowing down. And you get close to a 6, you're pretty much done. You're not nitrifying at all. So that's what you're looking for. If you're in nitrite lock and your DO is good, your MLSS is good, your free ammonia is good, like that question we just talked about, you might want to look at your alkalinity and pH, okay? B is wrong. because that's excessive sludge age leading to endogenous decay of nitrifiers. No, you want high sludge ages in order to accomplish these things. And endogenous decay of nitrifiers, sure, but the reason that's happening is there's so many of them, and they've already converted all the ammonia that there's nothing for them to eat. So that's not right. C, elevated nitrite levels inhibiting NOBs. No, you want elevated nitrite levels for the NOBs. They need to, that's what they eat. And then high F to M ratio, increasing heterotrophic oxygen demand. No, because what have we talked about? The MLSS is stable. And the high F to M could explain it. It could explain it, but which condition most likely explains is what it asked for. So this is where somebody might get it wrong and go, yeah, high F to M, that could cause it, but the high F to M increasing heterotrophic oxygen demand, that actually negates that being a possible answer because my DO is maintained above 3 milligrams per liter. Now, if it was high F to M ratio causing the heterotrophs to outcompete the AOBs, that could also be a good explanation, but that wasn't what I put. So that's why D is wrong. A is correct. Take a drink of water. Give me a sec. Okay. In a conventional activated sludge system, operators observe an increasing F to M ratio despite stable influent loading. Which operational adjustment would most effectively lower the F to M ratio without changing influent characteristics? A, decrease RAS rate to reduce the clarifier blanket depth. B, increase the RAS rate to raise MLSS concentration in the aeration basin. C, reduce aeration to slow nitrifier oxygen demand. Or D, increase wasting to improve sludge settleability. This is one of those things. There is one of these is a potential correct answer, but not for the reason I gave. Okay, so let's go through these. A, decrease the RAS rate to reduce clarifier blanket depth. That is categorically false. If you decrease the RAS rate, you will increase your clarifier depth. Where's my pen? Here we go. A is wrong. B, increase the RAS rate to raise MLSS concentration in the aeration basin. Of the answers I gave, this is the most effective, B. And I'll tell you why D is not right in a second. You will be increasing the RAS rate to move more inventory out of the clarifier back into the aeration basin, putting more MLSS into the aeration basin, meaning higher microorganism count, lower F to M ratio because the influent loading is stable, okay? D, increase wasting to improve sludge settleability. Increase wasting would be my operational choice over just increasing the RAS rate, but that's not why I said to increase wasting. To improve sludge settleability, no. I would increase wasting to raise, I'm sorry, I'm wrong about this. I just got confused. Everything I just said about D was wrong. You would decrease wasting. I sometimes get confused on that one. You decrease wasting to raise the F to M ratio. I'm glad I caught that and it didn't live in perpetuity on my channel that I screwed that up. You would have decreased your wasting to keep more inventory. So I'm sorry, D could have never been right because if you increase wasting, you will raise the F to M ratio. I'm very glad I caught that. See, if I wasn't doing it live, you guys would have never known that I make mistakes. So B is the correct answer on that one. Okay. During normal diurnal flow variations, an activated sludge plant maintains a constant RAS rate throughout the day. Which statement best describes how this operational strategy affects the F to M ratio? Okay, so what I'm talking about is a constant, a constant RAS rate. You've got two different RAS rates. You've got percentage of flow, and you'll have VFDs that are watching the flow of the plant, and as flow increases, the RAS rate increases, as flow decreases, the RAS rate decreases. That's not the scenario that I'm putting here. I'm saying a constant RAS rate, okay? No, regardless of influent flow, you're always 100 GPM or whatever it is. Okay, A, the F to M ratio remains constant. B, solids will build up in the secondary clarifier during peak flows. C, the F to M ratio decreases during low flow periods. D, the F to M ratio is constantly changing throughout the day. Let's go through these. A, the F to M ratio remains constant. Nope. So diurnal flow variations mean that if you've ever worked in a plant, the flow's not coming in the same all day. And we're assuming no EQ basin, okay? We're assuming it's just coming right in and going right into aeration. So that can't be true. because the food is constantly moving up and down with a consistent ras rate. B, solids will build up in the secondary clarifier during peak flows. That is a valid thing, but my question was, which statement best describes how this operational strategy affects the F to M ratio? B is a red herring. B is correct, yeah, because I've got a consistent ras rate, flow gets a little faster through the aeration basin. That means that more solids would build up in the secondary in that scenario, but that's not my question. So B is wrong. This is very typical on these tests. C, the F to M ratio decreases during low flow periods. No, opposite. And the F to M ratio is constantly changing throughout the day is correct. So if you think your F is doing this up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, that's your BOD, your food, and your M, your microorganisms, are constantly being fed at the same rate, constant, 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 your F to M ratio will fly all over the place throughout the day. So that is what I'm getting at on this question. Your F to M ratio is constantly changing if you have a constant ras rate, okay? Got a chat in here, and that is Matt. What's going on, Turd Nerd, says Matt from Operator Mindset. Thank you for joining, Matt. You just missed one of my, I got confused. I confused myself. Matt and I chat a lot on the phone these days, and I was going through this with him yesterday or day before yesterday, and I said, God, I better write an answer key so I don't trip myself up as I'm going through this real fast. And I did it, Matt, even though I've got an answer key and everything. I said something wrong. Anyway, next one. In a contact stabilization activated sludge process, which operational condition most directly affects the system's ability to remove soluble BOD during the contact phase? You guys need to know all the different step feed, contact stabilization, complete mix, all of them. You got to know them. You're going to be asked about them. A, increasing the ras rate to raise the MLSS concentration in the stabilization tank. B, maintaining a sufficiently long stabilization or re-aeration time to rebuild biomass biosorption capacity. C, reducing aeration in the contact tank to promote partial denitrification. Or D, increasing wasting during peak flow periods to prevent clarifier blanket rise. Which most directly affects the system's ability to remove soluble BOD during the contact phase? A, increase the ras rate to raise the MLSS. No, that's not correct. Your MLSS should be pretty stout in your stabilization tank regardless of your ras rate. That's where you keep a lot of your inventory for, or all your inventory really, for your contact stabilization. Maintaining a sufficiently long stabilization time to rebuild biomass biosorption capacity, correct. Look into how it works, okay? It goes into the stabilization tank, and that's where it kind of, it goes in the contact tank, it gathers the food. This is kind of a very rough analogy of what happens in contact stabilization. Maybe I can draw a picture. Influent comes here, we'll call this our contact tank, contact, and you got a low MLSS in here. Okay, and it goes to a clarifier, all right, here, and then it rases to a stabilization tank, and this is where tons of inventory, high MLSS is in here, and it's re-aerated, so it's aerating in both of these, and then it comes back and meets up. So what happens in the stabilization tank, in essence, they go grocery shopping in the contact tank, the bugs, and then they eat it, they go home and they make their meal at the stabilization tank. You could also say the contact tank's the takeout counter, and the stabilization tank is they went back home and watched Netflix. That's where they actually process the BOD, the microbes, they being the microbes, and kind of shake off, and they get ready to go back and get more food in the contact tank. C and D are both wrong. I mean, I just explained, I think, pretty well what's going on there. Let me see. Matt says, you are doing great, Shawn. Thanks for putting this information out there. Absolutely. Well, mistakes, they make you more human, right? And it should give you guys hope that goofballs like me can get through all this, and you can too. And a lot of you guys out there, I'm going to be honest. I watch Reddit, I watch Facebook, I watch LinkedIn. There are so many talented operators out there and that know a lot more than I do. I'm going to be very, very frank about that. I think Matt and I just have the chutzpah to put a YouTube channel about it together, and we just love what we do, and so there's a lot of talented operators out there that are way better than I am, and if they want to start a YouTube channel, I'll be right there as their first subscriber for sure. In a step feed activated sludge process, which operational advantage is most directly achieved by distributing influent load across multiple feed points along the aeration basin? So this is a difference between a grade 3 and a grade 4 or 5 level, or grade B, or grade, or class B, class A. Grade 3, you need to know what step feed is. This question, I'm telling you what it is in the question. Okay, we're distributing the influent load across multiple feed points, but what's the operational advantage? Why are we doing it, right? So let's read these questions. A, increased RAS concentration entering the first pass, improving initial BOD consumption. B, reduced peak F to M ratios in the initial aeration zones, improving process stability during diurnal load swings. C, higher dissolved oxygen levels throughout the basin due to reduced aeration demand. D, improved clarifier performance because less sludge is returned to the system. I'm just gonna point this out. I'm gonna draw a picture for you guys here too. So here's the influent, here's my aeration basin. Okay, instead of a plug flow where it would just kind of enter the basin at the beginning, it will enter here, but it will also enter here, enter here, enter here, enter here. It spreads it out. And the reason why, and I'm not gonna go through all these answers, but really it's B, reduced peak F to M ratios in the initial aeration zone right here. Reduced F to M ratios, improving process stability during diurnal load swings, like heavy swings. You don't, in a step feed system, you're not necessarily always step feeding. You have an option to step feed, okay? And that's to protect those bugs at the very beginning. You could have major problems if you're trying to plug flow. And hold on one second. Tank contractor. I've got a tank repair going on. One of my water tanks is having an issue. We're having a repair up there and he's texting me. So sorry about that. This is, again, live. That's how it goes. So yeah, what happens is these processes aren't always in step feed configuration. You'll normally be in plug flow. And actually one of the interviews I did with, Johnny Mack, in Connecticut, and he talks about this. They're normally plug flow, but when the storms come and they have huge, here it comes, big 40 MGD flows, they will move to step feed, and that distributes it through the aeration basin. Okay. When an activated sludge system reaches a predominantly endogenous respiration phase, which benefit is most directly associated with the effect on power consumption? A, improved clarifier performance because less sludge settles in the secondary clarifier. B, lower aeration demand because stable sludge always reduces oxygen demand. C, power savings because stable endogenous sludge requires less frequent pumping. D, increased F to M ratio due to removal of older mineralized biomass. Well, improved clarifier performance because less sludge settles in the secondary has nothing to do with my power consumption, really. I mean, if it does, it's negligible, so it's not A. B, lower aeration demand because stable sludge always reduces oxygen demand. Always. It can, but not always. That's out. Watch out for these. I had one where there was a never, or it was an always. I can't remember if it was an always or never, but be very, very careful with the always and nevers of the world. Oftentimes, like I would say 99% of the time, they are traps. Okay, nothing's really always the truth, okay, in this anyway. Power savings because stable endogenous sludge requires less frequent pumping. Yes, it's stable. Research the three, it's lag, log. I can't remember all four off the top of my head, but there's four stages of activated sludge. And in endogenous sludge, you get the least amount of reproduction from the bugs, and they're actually cannibalizing themselves. So for instance, when my plant, because of how it's designed, when I go down to 4,500 MLSS, it rises to 6,500 MLSS very quickly. Just, that's the design. But when I get to 6,500, it takes a lot longer for it to go from 6,500 to 7,000 because it's stable, okay? And that means I have to pump less. When you find yourself in endogenous phase, you have to waste less because you've got less multiplication of bugs, okay? And increased F to M ratio due to, no, that has nothing to do with power consumption. That will happen. You remove the older mineralized biomass through wasting, you will increase your F to M ratio, but that doesn't really mean anything for power consumption. Which of the following statements about sludge dewatering centrifuges is not true? A, centrifuges typically produce drier cake when the differential scroll speed is increased. B, higher bowl speeds increase centrifugal force but also increase energy consumption. C, centrifugal performance is influenced by feed solids concentration, polymer type, and polymer dose. D, centrifuges separate solids from liquid using the principle of density differences under high rotational force. Which of the following is not true? Let's go through them. A, centrifuges typically produce drier cake when the scroll speed is increased. That is wrong. A is the correct answer on this, which is not true. The scroll is what pushes it through the bowl. So you got the scroll in the bowl, okay? oh man, I should find somebody around here that's got a centrifuge. It's hard to even draw a picture of this, but there you've got a differential speed. And the scroll's speed differential to the bowl is what actually pushes the sludge through. So if you increase that differential speed, the sludge gets pushed through faster, the cake, meaning it has less time in the bowl, meaning it's wetter, okay? So you will not produce a drier cake by increasing scroll differential speed. You will produce a wetter cake. So A is the correct answer on this. Higher bowl speeds increase centrifugal force. Yep, absolutely. And increased energy, yes. All three of those, B, C, and D, are all true. So I'm not going to read them all, but yeah, they're all true. A is the correct answer. Which statement about ORP in biological wastewater treatment is most accurate? ORP stands for oxidation reduction potential, or redox potential. I've done a whiteboard on this. It's on my channel. Go look up wastewater whiteboard, oxygen reduction potential. I get into some nauseating detail about this, but if you're taking a higher level exam, you need to understand ORP. Okay, which is most accurate? A, ORP directly measures dissolved oxygen concentration in the aeration basin. B, a negative ORP value indicates conditions favorable for denitrification. C, an ORP reading of 200 millivolts in an anoxic selector indicates the need for more dissolved oxygen in aeration. D, high positive ORP values are required for effective anaerobic phosphorus release. Think about that while I take a drink of water. So let's go through these. A, ORP directly measures dissolved oxygen concentration. No, it doesn't. It measures the oxidative potential of the aeration basin. So if you have an ORP in aeration, it actually tells you how effective your dissolved oxygen is in that moment. Well, that might not even be as accurate a statement as I can say. It would only tell you the oxidative environment of the aeration basin. A dissolved oxygen sensor directly measures dissolved oxygen. So A is not right. B, a negative ORP value indicates conditions favorable for denitrification, and B is correct. Yes, you can have a positive ORP value and still be in denitrification, because that would be anoxic, but you're gonna, I like it around -50 to -100. It's my happy place. An ORP reading of 200 millivolts in an anoxic selector, no, that's wrong. You want it lower than 200. And it indicates a need for more dissolved oxygen in the aeration. No, if you were to do that, because an anoxic selector is typically fed MLSS from aeration in one way or the other through a recycle stream. If you have 200 millivolts, I would argue you need to back the dissolved oxygen off, because you want that anoxic selector's millivolts to drop. Okay, and then D, high positive ORP values are required. No, you want strong negative ORP values for anaerobic phosphorus removal. We're looking like -150 millivolts and lower for anaerobic phosphorus release if you're using fermentation or an anaerobic selector, okay? And yeah, again, I did a whole video on this. You can go watch it. Which statement best describes how electrons behave near an ORP electrode when the surrounding environment becomes more reducing or reductive? And I actually wrote a note on this because I have to think about it. Like, reduction is this and oxidation is that. Actually, did I skip it? I thought I had, I must have taken it out. Oh man, I had a really good ORP one, a reduction versus oxidation for you. Maybe it comes later and I just forgot where I put it and all this. But let's go through this. Which statement best describes how electrons behave near an ORP electrode if we are in a reductive environment? A, electrons are pulled away from the electrode surface by compounds looking to gain electrons. B, electrons accumulate at the electrode surface because surrounding compounds tend to donate electrons. Electron activity becomes irrelevant because ORP probes only measure dissolved oxygen. D, electrons move from the electrode into the solution, increasing the measured potential. So A is not correct. Electrons are pulled away from the electrode surface by compounds looking to gain electrons. No. It's actually the opposite. B, electrodes accumulate at the electrode surface. So when you're in a more reductive environment, you get a lower ORP reading, and it's millivolts because the electrons have a negative charge. So, and I use, see, I've got 3 ORPs in my plant, and I use them for multiple things. And it's largely all we're doing is measuring the reductive or oxidative environments. And so, yeah, when electrons accumulate at the electrode surface, your ORP reading is going to go down because electrodes have a negative charge, and that means you are in a reductive environment. And I do believe I put it later maybe in this presentation what reduction is, and it's going to maybe help you understand this a little bit more. And C and D are incorrect. ORP probes only measure dissolved oxygen. Absolutely not. And D, electrons move from the electrode into the solution. They can. Electrons can move from the electrode when you're in an oxidative environment, but it doesn't increase the measured potential necessarily. And if it were, that's more of an oxidative environment, not a reductive environment. Okay? So B is correct. Which of the following statements is true about measuring organic loading in wastewater treatment ponds? Okay, gonna take a breather here because it's just a pond question, right? You'd be surprised at how difficult the pond questions could be. A, organic loading is based only on pond volume and does not require influent BOD data. B, organic loading is determined solely by measuring dissolved oxygen levels in the pond. C, per capita BOD loading is approximately 0.012 to 0.015 pounds per day per person. D, organic loading is typically expressed as pounds of BOD applied per acre per day. Which of the following statements is true about measuring organic loading in wastewater ponds? A is wrong. No, based on only pond volume. Come on, that's not right. B, organic loading is determined solely by measuring dissolved oxygen. No, that's not how we measure BOD. Dissolved oxygen levels, you could, I mean, that doesn't, I don't see a universe in which that can make any sense. Per capita BOD loading is approximately 0.12. No, it's 0.17 to 0.2. That's the textbook number, okay? If you're given a per capita math problem, 0.17 to 0.2. If they do not specify the number, where am I at here? It's 0.17 per person. BOD, pound of BOD per day per person, okay? So that C is wrong. And D, organic loading, is expressed as pounds of BOD per acre per day. Yes, pounds per acre per day. Okay? Which of the following statements about UV disinfection is not true? Not true. A, UV systems inactivate microorganisms by disrupting nucleic acids and preventing replication. B, UV dose is influenced by lamp output, exposure time, and the clarity of the wastewater. C, UV intensity is measured in watts per square centimeter. D, suspended solids and turbidity can shield organisms from UV light and reduce disinfection efficiency. Let's go through them. A, UV systems inactivate microorganisms by disrupting, pretty much messing with their genetic material. A is correct, so that is not the correct answer. A is true. We're asking what is not true. So this is what gets so tricky about these is you know, on the grades 4 and 5, they say we've eliminated true and false. I guess you have, but this is a true-false question. It's just bigger and beefier. So A is not the correct answer. B, UV dose is influenced by these things. That is a true statement, so B is not the correct answer. UV intensity is measured in watts per square centimeter. That is not true. C is the correct answer. It's milliwatts per square centimeter. Milliwatts. Watch out for that. If you're moving fast through these tests, you might have just blown it because, oh yeah, watts per square centimeter, boom, boom, boom. You know, that's gotta be true. No, it's milliwatts. And D, suspended solids, D, that is true. They absolutely shield organisms. You want clear water going through a UV lamp setup. And so yeah, D would be not the correct answer. It is C. Which of the following chemicals can leave extra dissolved oxygen in the water after odor treatment is accomplished? A, hydrogen peroxide. B, ferrous chloride. C, sodium bisulfite. D, alum. Which of the following chemicals can leave extra DO in the water after odor treatment is accomplished? A, hydrogen peroxide is correct. Hydrogen peroxide dissociates into water and dissolved oxygen when it's put into the water. And so you do use this for odor control with hydrogen sulfide, and you need to know all these different chemicals. I promise you, you will thank me. all the chemicals that you need to know for hydrogen sulfide control. I highly recommend you know them, and that's where I'll leave it without getting too specific. I take great care in building these things that I don't get too specific on what I've seen on the exams, okay? I'm pointing you in the right direction without giving too much away. Ferrous chloride does not leave DO in the water, no. Sodium bisulfite, first of all, isn't used for odor control, and secondly, actually is reductive and lowers the dissolved oxygen. Be careful of that. If you're using sodium bisulfite to dechlorinate, watch out for overdose if you've got to have a certain dissolved oxygen leaving the plant, because sodium bisulfite will suck it up. And sulfite being the trigger in there. Sulfur compounds have oxygen demand on them. And D, alum, no, that's just a coagulant, so it's not alum. The correct answer is A. Which of the following is not used for reducing hydrogen sulfide in wastewater systems? A, aeration, B, ferric chloride, C, nitrate salts, D, alum. Which is not used for reducing H2S? Aeration is used, yes. I mean, it's just oxygen, so yeah. Ferric chloride, absolutely, is used. Nitrate salts, yep, absolutely. There's a trade name, I want to say it's bioxin, I forget, but it's nitrates in essence, and it uses denitrification, so think about the conditions. There's sulfates in the water, right? So you're getting that sulfate before it transitions to hydrogen sulfide, and it just, it does in essence what happens to nitrates in an anoxic zone. So you're putting nitrate salts in there, and there's these microbes that are looking for that molecular oxygen. They'll go after the nitrate salts. Hope I explained that correctly. Alum is the correct answer in this. D, you don't use alum no, you would use that as a coagulant. Maybe in some way, bioxide. Thank you, tree trunk, bioxide. And I think I stumbled over my words there in trying to explain how it works, but yeah, nitrate salts, bioxide is odor control for H2S. Alum is not, no. If it did, it's not really that usable. Okay, next one. A plant's effluent ammonia concentration stays the same year round, but the facility notices that its summer ammonia limits are more difficult to meet than its winter limits. Which of the following best explains the seasonal difference? A, higher summer temperatures increase the fraction of unionized ammonia, which is more toxic. B, lower winter temperatures convert ammonium into nitrate, increasing toxicity. C, ammonia toxicity is the same at all temperatures, but pH changes only in the winter. D, cold water increases the amount of unionized ammonia, making winter limits stricter. Which of the following best explains the seasonal difference? I've already said it, and I put this later in the presentation because I want to drive a point home that if you don't know the answer to a question on these exams, move on, because oftentimes they answered their own question from earlier on with another question like this. It has happened on every single certification exam I've ever taken, including the grade 5. And I won't tell you which one it is because I can't, but it was like, oh, I was actually kind of stumped on that, but thanks for telling me the answer later on, guys. So let's go through this. And the reason I'm talking about this is I've already actually said this in this presentation. Let's look at this. A, higher summer temperatures increase the fraction of unionized ammonia, which is more toxic. Yes, A is correct. Look at the ammonia equilibrium, guys. Higher temps, higher pH, more unionized ammonia, more toxicity. So you'll see different ammonia limits based on the time of year because the temperatures are different, because the actual ammonia in the total ammonia nitrogen is higher in the summer, more toxic. It's more ammonium, lower temperatures in the winter, and that doesn't kill fish, okay? And then the rest of these are not right. So I'm not gonna read them all. B, C, and D are all incorrect. Which of the following situations would most likely cause a belt filter press to produce a wetter than normal sludge cake? A, polymer dose is too low, causing poor flock formation and excessive solids carryover. B, belt speed is too slow, increasing the time solids spent in the gravity zone. C, belt tension is too high, increasing the pressure applied to the sludge. D, feed solids concentration increases from 1% to 3%. Pretty straightforward one. The answer on this one is going to be A, polymer dose is too low, causing poor flock formation and excessive solids carryover. That's just about as easy as it gets. If you're not creating good flock, it'll just smush out and you're going to have a wetter cake, and you're going to have a lot of washout on the sides of the belt. It'll fall off the sides, more TSS. Belt speed too slow, increasing the time solid spent in the gravity zone, that should get you a drier cake, typically, if everything else is working fine. Same with the belt tension is too high, that should give you a drier cake. The problem with the belt tension being too high is that it would potentially blind. So watch out for that. And feed solids concentration, 1 to 3%, that's, I mean, so long as your polymer dose is fine and your feed rate is fine and all things are equal, that wouldn't necessarily make a wetter cake. I've got I know a plant nearby that wastes directly. They don't even go through a thickener. They just waste directly to the belt press, and they put a pretty dry cake out. It's about 16, 17%. They do pretty good. During morning rounds, an operator notices that the effluent from a primary clarifier is unusually cloudy. The sludge blanket depth is higher than normal, and the operator also observes occasional burping of solids rising to the surface. Flow to the plant has not changed, and the weirs are clean. Which of the following is the most likely cause of poor clarifier performance? I don't know what weirs are clean. I was going for something there. Maybe somebody scrubbed them that morning. I don't know. I don't know why I put the weirs are clean in that. But let's talk about what I'm getting at here. A, sludge has become septic due to insufficient sludge withdrawal. B, surface overflow rate is too low, causing excessive settling. C, influent temperature increased overnight, reducing settling efficiency. D, scum removal is occurring too frequently, disturbing the sludge blanket. Okay, if you're seeing this, it is A, sludge has become septic due to insufficient sludge withdrawal. Carly, I think she said A question mark, so I don't know if it was, both of these are A, so if it was the last one or this one, you're correct on both. Yeah, man, you're gonna get these gas bubbles forming. I wanna get a video of it next summer. My primary clarifier, it's kind of hard to explain, but I actually get denitrification accidentally in it in the warmer summer months, and I'll do a whole video on it. Without you being able to see what happens and how the water flows through the plant, the recycle streams flow, you'd be like, well, how are you denitrifying in your primary clarifier if you're not even using it? It's from my trickling filter. And it is such a pain, but the sludge blanket just floats. I mean, it's really hard to keep under control actually with the warmer temps. And I have tried to withdraw sludge at a faster rate. It's just so fast. It happens so fast to me. But if that's not happening to you, it's not a nitrate related thing, it's a septicity thing. Your sludge is in there too long. You gotta increase your withdrawal rate or your sludge blanket will float from what's called gasification. The rest of these would not cause burping necessarily. So yeah, no, it's A. Okay, this is a California one, guys. California only. And if you get this question and you're in a different state, you need to go look it up. If a large spill occurs at a wastewater treatment plant, which external agency must be notified first? I use some very specific words in here to eliminate one of the answers. A, the Regional Water Quality Control Board. B, the local fire department. C, Cal OES, California Office of Emergency Services. Might also be written the governor's office. Governor, however you spell governor. Governor's Office of Emergency Services. D, the County Environmental Health Department. So let's go through it. A, the Regional Water Quality Control Board. Well, you would call them. That's my regulator. But if it's a large spill, would I call them first? No. There was a lot of debate about this, actually. And I had my annual inspection with my regulator earlier this year, or actually, maybe it was in August. Now, wow, it's been a while. And I asked her this question because different people said different things to me. And she said, no, you would call Cal OES. You call it, yeah, we want to know, and you have to file the report with us. But if it's a large spill, Cal OES has a 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week emergency line. That's who you call if it's going down, okay? Local fire department, you would, yeah. County environmental health, you'd call all of these people and notify them. But who are we talking to first, okay? It's Cal OES. Those of you who are not in California, this does not apply, but you might get something similar, so know who you're supposed to be calling. And I gave this advice to somebody, it was actually Tree Trunk, he and I had a phone call not too long ago. If you're ever confused about some of this stuff, call your regulator. They should have a lot of these answers for you. And that's how I buried it, was I'm just gonna ask Sarah. And she was really, oh yeah, you would call Cal OES and then talk to us later. Okay, I've belabored this point. A completely nitrifying wastewater plant has been meeting its chlorine residual targets for months, but operators are now having a difficult time maintaining a chlorine residual, and the plant has begun failing total coliform limits. Chlorine feed equipment is functioning properly, and there have been no changes in flow or contact time. Which of the following is the most likely cause of reduced disinfection performance? A, effluent temperature too high for effective chlorination. B, elevated nitrite levels in the effluent. C, nitrates are inhibiting chlorine's ability to disinfect. D, too little ammonia to combine with. Let's go through them. A, effluent temperature too high for effective chlorination? Absolutely not. That cannot be true, because the warmer the temperature, the more effective your chlorine. B, elevated nitrite levels in the effluent. Yes, nitrite is a killer to free available chlorine. I didn't mention chlorine, free available versus chloramines, but there's an assumption here that if you are having a very hard time meeting a chlorine residual, when all things being equal, and all of a sudden, the more you add, no matter how much you're cranking up your chlorinator, and I say this so emphatically because I've lived it. I've lived in nitrite lock here. It sucks. And there's no amount of chlorine I was able to feed that gave me something that was actually somewhat helpful to disinfect. You're looking at nitrite most of the time, nitrite. Nitrates are inhibiting chlorine? No, nitrates do not react with nitrates do not react with chlorine the way nitrites do. They're because nitrate is the highest oxidized form of nitrogen. Okay, it's the most oxidized. It's got nowhere else to go. Nitrite is not fully oxidized, so it does still have an electron, if I'm saying this right, an electron to gain. Is that right? If I'm oxidizing it, I'm taking an electron. I'm sorry, an electron to give. So it's a 5-to-1 demand. It's brutal. And then D, too little ammonia to combine with. No, that's not a thing, because if you combine with the ammonia, if you've got enough ammonia to combine with, you're chlorinating, and if you have too little to combine with, you just breakpoint chlorinate and just go to free available. Tree Trunk says, great question for everybody to study up on. Yeah, it really is. Thank you, Tree Trunk. Yeah, you really need to understand nitrite. And as a memory tool, just bear with me here. Any of you who are drinking water operators, if you have ever worked on a well, and I've worked on some wells with some screaming high nitrate, and it was all we could do to get it below the 10 milligram per liter MCL. We blended, we went through ion exchange, we did all these things. And we still had like a 9 milligram per liter nitrate and a 2 milligram per liter free available chlorine. The nitrate and the chlorine do not react with each other in any way, anything close like nitrite do, okay? So heads up. Which of the following statements is true about a complete mix activated sludge system? A, it relies on plug flow hydraulics to maintain a strong F to M gradient. B, it provides better resistance to shock loads because influent is rapidly diluted throughout the basin. C, it operates with a naturally high F to M ratio due to its mixing pattern. D, it produces a stratified basin with distinct aerobic and anoxic zones. So A, it relies on plug flow hydraulics? Absolutely not. A plug flow is this. Here's my basin, and it's just straight through, that's plug flow, okay? It's complete mix. So instead, just imagine this, it could be a basin like a square, but let's just do a circle, and it's just churning, it's this big tub of chocolate milk, right? That's what I like to say. And you dump your influent in, and it hits, and it just mixes in with everything. It's just mixing all the time. And flow is not plug flow like this. This is mixing too, but not in the same way that a complete mix system is. So the answer here is B, it provides better resistance to shock loads because influent is so rapidly diluted through the basin. It's completely mixed up, okay? It does not operate with a naturally high F to M ratio. No, and you need to know all the different F to M ratios of all the different activated sludge variations because you might be quizzed on which ones are lower or higher than others and which ones operate at this or that. You know, 0.2 or 0.5 or 0.1 or 0.15. These tests are no joke. Like it sounds like, oh God, I gotta memorize all those numbers. Yes, you do. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. You gotta be able to navigate some of these more advanced questions. And of course, we all know and I'm not getting on a soapbox and being all, you know, aggro about the tests. We all know we would just go look it up in a book. Like, you know, why do I really need to know that for a test? But it's the reality we live in. You must know it. And no, there's no way it produces a stratified basin because you're mixing it up all the time. So no, the answer is B. Why would an operator choose a complete mix activated sludge system instead of a step feed process? A, to reduce the impact of peak flows by distributing influent across multiple feed points. B, to create a strong food gradient that favors rapid BOD removal at the front of the basin. C, to provide maximum dilution of incoming loads and improve resistance to shock loading. D, to increase denitrification by sending influent to later zones in the aeration basin. Very similar to what I just asked, but I wanted to put this in here because of what I just said. You need to be able to compare and contrast. So the layman would look at this and go, okay, so let me just do step feed again. We got entry point here, entry point here, entry point there, there, there. Complete mix, mix up all the time, all the time, all the time, okay. Now, there's a difference between these two. Remember what I said earlier. Step feed's only swap to when you need it. It's not always on step feed oftentimes, okay? You can have plug flow through your plant, and then when you need it, you move to step feed. So why would I choose a complete mix over a step feed? To reduce the impact of peak flows by distributing across multiple feed points? No, that's step feed. So I'm choosing complete mix. To create a strong food gradient that favors rapid BOD removal at the front? No, because it's completely mixed. The front of what? It's a big circle. So no, B is not right. C, to provide maximum dilution of incoming loads and improves resistance to shock loading? Yes, because typically by the time I've switched to step feed, the shock load's here and I've realized it, and now I'm moving to try to disperse and spread out that loading across the entire aeration basin, but I'm already behind the 8-ball. Where complete mix shines versus step feed is it's always mixed all the time, and those gnarly loads, by the time you realize it's hit you, you're diluting it and you can actually adjust, and so you're a little safer against those. And then D's wrong, so no. Keep losing my pen. There it is, D. Okay, next one. Which condition is most likely occurring if a dissolved air flotation unit develops a thinner than normal float blanket and effluent turbidity begins to rise? This would be a DAF unit, DAF or DAFT, dissolved air flotation thickener. They're really not different. They're called different things. So a thickener you're going to see used on WAS, waste activated sludge. A DAF is going to be used on like fog and stuff, like industrial plants. They use them on like, you know, get the fog, the fats, oil, and grease out of there. So lower the BOD loading downstream. So you got the float blanket is what floats to the top. A, the polymer dose is too high, causing the float to harden. B, the saturator pressure is too low, reducing bubble formation. C, the flights are operating too fast, creating surface disturbance that prevents a stable float blanket from forming. D, the air to solids ratio is too high, causing excessive flotation. You need to know the air to solids ratio. I don't want to give the wrong number, but it's like 0.01 to 0.05. Oh, I don't know if I'm telling you the right number there. It's a really small decimal, but look it up. Please, if you're watching this, don't take that to the bank because I don't know that. I don't have a DAF unit. I had it memorized. It's very, very, very low. It's like 0.01 to 0.0 something. And you might be asked to answer what that ratio is, or it might be one of the correct answers about a DAF unit is the air to solids ratio, okay? So just be aware of that. So let's go through these. The polymer dose is too high, causing the float to harden. No, that's not going to develop a thinner than normal float blanket. So no, you probably just have, I mean, it could cause it to harden and be jelly-like, but no, it would be pretty thick. So no. B, the saturator pressure is too low, reducing bubble formation. Maybe, but from my research, this might actually create a thick float, okay? So not necessarily B, maybe, but if C wasn't in there, I might look at B. C, the flights are operating too fast, creating surface disturbance that prevents a stable float blanket from forming. Yes, those flights on the top move very, very slow. And the one DAF unit I know about in the county I'm in, they have not responded to my request to do a video. So I'm hoping at some point we could do dissolved air flotation. I just don't know very many around here, but they move really, really slow. They don't move fast. And if they're going really fast, that float is going to be thinner because you're skimming more off really fast, and effluent turbidity will rise because once you get a solids blanket, if you've ever seen these flights move, they move so slow because the faster you move, the more turbulence there is. You could shake that sludge up and it would disperse. You don't want to do that. So yeah, and then D is not correct, because if you're causing excessive flotation, you have a thicker than normal float blanket. Which of the following statements is not true regarding chemicals commonly used in wastewater treatment? A, ferric chloride is often used for phosphorus removal and can help improve sludge dewatering. B, sodium hypochlorite is used for disinfection but degrades over time, especially in warm storage conditions. C, polymer is typically added to increase flock strength and improve solids capture in clarification and dewatering. D, alum increases pH as it reacts in water, making it useful for raising alkalinity in low pH systems. Which is not true? Let's go through them. A, ferric is used for phosphorus removal. Yes. And yes, so A is correct. So that is not the correct answer. So again, not true. A is true, so A is not the correct answer. B, sodium hypo, this is a true statement, so it is not the correct answer. It will absolutely degrade in warm storage conditions. It happens to me here. And then I've got to increase my dose. And if I forget, this is a true thing, just real life. If I forget to change my settings on my chemical feed pumps after I get a delivery, my chlorine shoots through the roof and I might get a high chlorine alarm on my effluent. It's a thing. So I gotta, whenever a delivery comes, just make sure you're adjusting your dosing. Polymer this is a true statement. C is true, so it's not correct. You are using polymers to increase flock strength and improve solids capture in clarification and dewatering. D is not a true statement, so this is the correct answer. Alum increases pH. No, it doesn't. It decreases it. It's an acid. So it's very well known to do that. So making it useful for raising alkalinity, absolutely. It sucks alkalinity out of the room. Which of the following statements is true regarding TFSC operation? That stands for trickling filter solids contact. A, the trickling filter is designed to nitrify only, while the solids contact basin handles all BOD removal. B, the solids contact basin receives recirculated trickling filter effluent to provide additional contact time and improve BOD removal. C, the trickling filter operates at a very low hydraulic loading to prevent sloughing. D, the solids contact basin is operated without mixing to preserve the biofilm structure, which is true. Let's go through it. And by the way, this is kind of what it would look like. So trickling filter, and here's our distributor arms, and the little squigglies are the water falling on the media, and then we go to a contact basin, and sometimes this can be activated sludge. I know a couple of designs like that. So the answer, let's go through A. The trickling filter is designed to nitrify only? Absolutely not. It's the first one getting the BOD. There's too much food. Can't be that. The solids contact basin receives recirculated trickling filter effluent to provide additional contact time and improve BOD removal? Yes. B. There's an engineer, I hope he's watching, Sri, who I was talking with about this. We were going over a plan for one of his plants somewhere in the country. And I've never operated one of these, but yeah, they've got an activated sludge basin with an MCRT of 1 to 2 days. Very, very low. And I asked him, you use that to nitrify? He said, no, we use it to get rid of the rest of the BOD from the trickling filter. And it does a very good job. So that would be kind of that situation. The C and D are wrong. Solids contact basin is operated without mixing. No, you need to mix it because you need one of the rules of wastewater treatment is well mixed biomass. You want mixing in these basins because it prevents dead spots and it lets the microbes get into contact with all the different things. Same with anaerobic digesters. Okay. Which of the following correctly lists 2 steps of the multiple tube fermentation MTF method for coliform testing? A, presumptive test and confirmed test. Sun One Flower says there is no mixing. Do you operate one of those, Sun? Do I have that wrong? Because my research, mixing is in RBC. Well, I'm talking about a trickling filter. So this answer is being challenged, which is fine. I don't operate one of these, and my research says that B is the correct answer, but he is saying D is correct. So let's bookmark that. D is the correct answer. So here's what we're going to do. It sounds like he operates one of these. I don't know why you would want to do that, but you know what? I believe you, son. and I'm going to defer to somebody who operates one of these. My research says B is correct. How about everybody go research TFSC operation, and I will do the same, and we can reconvene after this is over in the comment section, and let's talk about it. And then if I'm wrong, hey, great, I'm open to that. I am doing this off research, and it sounds like Sun does this off of practice. So, okay, cool, great, thank you, Sun. Which of the following correctly lists 2 steps of the MTF, multiple tube fermentation method for coliform testing? Presumptive and confirmed, sample filtration, incubation on M. indo agar, C, plate pour to colony enumeration, or D, 5-day incubation to final DO measurement. Which of these are 2 steps of the MTF method? Correct answer is A, presumptive and confirmed. Okay, the third, if you're asked for a third, is completed. These are other sample procedures, B, C, and D, that are not the multiple tube fermentation. Okay, A is correct. And I want to only use 2. The 2 that matter the most is presumptive and confirmed, because I'll just say I have seen it where there's only 2 steps. But if you're asked for 3 steps, completed is the final step. Okay. Which of the following statements is true regarding stable mesophilic anaerobic digestion? A, methane content below 50% typically indicates sufficient alkalinity reserves. B, mesophilic digesters operate best around 98 degrees Fahrenheit and rely heavily on bicarbonate alkalinity to neutralize volatile acids and maintain pH stability. C, a rapid drop in volatile acids is a normal sign of increased methanogenic activity and requires no operational response. D, carbon dioxide levels above 40% in digester gas indicate excellent conversion, efficiency, and strong methanogen performance. So let's go through these. A, methane content below 50%. No, you don't want that. You want it above 60 the 60 is the floor, okay? B, mesophilic digesters operate best at 98F. Yes, all of that statement is true. It is B. Bicarbonate alkalinity, yes. C, a rapid drop, no. C and D are wrong. C and D are wrong. Sun says B, 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 B. Yeah, B is correct. All the rest of them are wrong. Thank you, Sun. Thanks for being so active in the chat. I appreciate it. Oh, and he says recirculation is preferred to improve efficiency. Okay, well, maybe I mixed the word, maybe I just messed my wording up on this question. And you're catching a nuance in my wording. So, or my wording is correct and I misunderstood the science behind it. So thank you, Sun. I appreciate your input. And like I said, let me get back to you guys in the comments section after I do a little research on that so I can understand it a little better. And Sun, feel free to drop more resources or even email me and we can talk about it. And if you, this might be an opportunity. If you run one of these plants, Sun, if you're open to an interview on the channel, that might be cool. If we could just talk about it. That's something I'm open to. So anyway, which of the following statements is true regarding the amount of BOD entering the plant during a storm event? So it's the amount. All right. So this one is tricky, and this catches a lot of people off guard. A, heavier flows cause the incoming organic load to dilute, making it easier for the microbes to consume all the BOD. B, heavier flows dilute the concentration of BOD, thereby reducing the overall amount of BOD entering the plant. C, peak wet weather flows up to 3 times design flow do not impact organic removal efficiency due to the dilution effects. D, heavier flows dilute the concentration of the BOD, but the overall amount of BOD entering the plant increases. A is wrong. I mean, your concentration dilutes, right? But doesn't mean it's easier for the microbes to consume. Heavier flows dilute the concentration, thereby reducing the overall amount. No, this is the big trick. If you're asked if the concentrations, drop, that is correct. But I didn't ask about concentrations. What do we measure? Pretty much anything in wastewater treatment. Pounds per day, not concentration. Okay, peak weather, C is wrong, D is correct. Heavier flows may dilute the concentration of BOD, but let's do a thought experiment. Say my normal municipal flows are 200 milligrams per liter. Okay, well, 300 milligrams per liter at 1.1, let's just say 1 mgd. Let's keep it simple, all right? But my diluted BOD is what, 175, let's say, milligrams per liter, which is a little less than half. But my flows went to 3.5 mgd. I have more BOD. Like, think about all the stuff, like infiltration and inflow. There's organics entering, right? There's like soil and there's stuff from people's drain pipes, and then they're like, you know, they're downspouts. And then you've got all the junk in the collection system that just cut loose and is heading your way. So the concentrations may drop, but your overall pounds go up, okay? Oh, I'm getting lit up in the thing here. This is a lot of sun. I am from India, not so much fluent in English. Oh, okay, well, maybe there's something lost in translation between our definitions of that TFSC, but if you've got, that's cool, man, whatever. I'm totally interested in digging into that question because I don't want to give out bad info. I was pretty well researched on that, but dude, I'm about as open as they come. If I'm wrong, cool, man. And then he says, storm brings big particles to enter into the system. Yep, and like vegetation. Yep, absolutely. Thank you, son. Yeah, D is correct. Which federal regulation establishes the standards for the use or disposal of sewage sludge, including pathogen reduction, vector attraction reduction, pollutant limits, and management practices for biosolids? This is a federal law. Everyone needs to know this one. No, I don't care what state you're in. If you're in the United States anyway. A, 40 CFR Part 141. B, 40 CFR Part 122. C, 40 CFR Part 503. D, 29 CFR Part 1910, 1910. Which one is it? Just not going to read all that. There's no need to. It is 503. The correct answer is C. The 503 regs is what they are called. Yeah, just know those. That's it. Now, let's have a question about them. Which of the following is not true about Class B biosolids under 40 CFR Part 503? A, Class B biosolids must demonstrate a geometric mean fecal coliform density of less than 2 million mpn per gram based on at least 7 samples collected over a representative period. B, Class B biosolids may meet vector attraction reduction by achieving a minimum of 38% volatile solids reduction or by meeting one of the other approved VAR options in Part 503.33. C, Class B biosolids require additional pathogen testing for salmonella, enteric viruses, and helminth ova, similar to Class A requirements to confirm adequate pathogen reduction. D, Class B biosolids rely on site restrictions like harvest delays, grazing restrictions, public access limits to reduce potential exposures following land application. I'm not going to read all that again. The one that is not true is C. They don't have to go through the same pathogens that A does, but you should know all these requirements for B and A, okay? The rest of these statements, A, B, and C, are true, and it would behoove you to know that. Got another comment from Sun. We have here, Indian Standard Code is 10500, 1012 Part 2. Thank you, Sun. Thank you for that. Which of the following is not true about denitrification? Denitrification can occur efficiently in a zone with high dissolved oxygen as long as nitrate concentrations are elevated. B, denitrifying bacteria require a readily biodegradable carbon source to convert nitrate and nitrite to nitrogen gas. C, denitrification requires an anoxic environment, where nitrate and nitrite serves as the terminal electron acceptor instead of dissolved oxygen. D, denitrification reduces alkalinity consumption in the treatment process by generating alkalinity as nitrate is reduced to nitrogen gas, which is not true. Denitrification can occur efficiently in a zone with dissolved high DO as long as nitrates are elevated. That is not true. Can it occur? I actually learned from Matt that it can occur. I didn't know till I watched Matt's denitrification video that denitrification can actually occur in the bacterial flock colony in an aeration basin. But what I said was efficiently, okay? I wouldn't say it's efficient. You would want an anoxic zone for efficient denitrification. B, C, and D are all correct. Yeah, that's right, A. Yeah, or that's right, son. A is correct. You can, I learned this, I didn't know this until I watched Matt's video, like I said already. There can be some denitrification in aeration, even with dissolved oxygen present, but it certainly isn't efficient. This is the one I was looking for earlier that I was like, oh, I thought I had another ORP thing. This is the question. Which of the following best defines reduction in an oxidation reduction redox reaction? A, the process in which a substance loses electrons. B, the process in which a substance gains electrons. C, the conversion of nitrate to nitrogen gas through biological activity in an anoxic zone. The breakdown of complex organic molecules into simpler compounds during biological treatment. What is reduction? So this, I lamented to a buddy, I wish reduction was not the gaining of electrons, it was the losing of electrons because it's reducing, right? No, it's gaining of electrons because it's atomic, I think it's its atomic number. I might be misquoting that, but you gain electrons, and so the number, I think it's the atomic number. Since electrons are have a negative charge, the number goes down. That's reduction, okay? The process in which a substance gains electrons is reduction. When you lose electrons, it's oxidation, okay? So when I'm oxidizing something, let's just take an example. I have a bacteria. This is my little bacteria, okay? I'm disinfecting. And I use, let's just say Cl2. Keep it simple. Cl2 is an oxidizer, right? And the bacteria is going to be what's reduced. The oxidizer takes the electrons and reduces. I've reduced the oxidizer because it gained the electrons, and I oxidized the bacteria and killed it by taking its electrons. Okay, this is oxidized. An oxidizer will oxidize other things, and when it does that, it itself reduces. So just chew on that a little bit. I got a lot of answers from Sun. Thank you, Sun, for being so active. He says denitrification takes place in secondary sedimentation and leads to sludge bulking. If it happens in the sludge, so I'll talk to you about that one, Sun. Yes, if denitrification happens in the secondary clarifier, it will float your sludge blanket. So if you get a question about floating sludge at the top of your secondary clarifier and you sludge judge it and all the water underneath it's clear, you have denitrified in your secondary, okay? You should know about that. So your goal here is to make sure that does not happen, and you wanna either increase recycle streams, waste more, whatever the thing you've decided, increase dissolved oxygen, whatever it is you and your plant have decided needs to happen. So what Sun is referring to in the chat is when it does denitrify in the secondary, it will float your blanket, and that is not what you want. And yeah, you got that right, Sun, on this one is B, the process in which substance gains electrons. Okay. Which of the following statements about ferric chloride use in wastewater treatment is not true? A, ferric chloride can precipitate orthophosphate by forming insoluble ferric phosphate compounds. B, ferric chloride addition can lower pH by releasing hydrogen ions. C, ferric chloride is commonly used to enhance sludge dewatering by improving floc structure. D, ferric chloride increases alkalinity in the aeration basin because ferric ions consume nitrate during biological phosphorus removal. Which of these statements is not true? And for the sake of time, I'm not going to read them all. D is not true. No, it does not increase alkalinity. And I don't see ferric ions consuming nitrate in the phosphorus removal. It's just a nonsense statement. That whole statement's nonsense. Ferric chloride should decrease alkalinity. When a treatment plant is experiencing nitrite lock and free chlorine is being rapidly consumed, which action can temporarily improve disinfection capability while the underlying cause is addressed? So this is a tricky one. I did this for a very specific reason. I'm going to set up a premise. You might get this or something like it. I very much specified free chlorine. Which action can temporarily improve disinfection capability while the underlying cause is addressed? So let's go through these. A, increase aeration in the secondary clarifier to boost dissolved oxygen levels. This may be an option to fix the underlying problem. It may be. I don't have enough information to actually address nitrite lock. I don't know if it's a pH thing, an ammonia thing. I'm not really sure what is causing the nitrite lock, right? So A could be a long-term solution. B, add anhydrous ammonia, thereby switching from free chlorine to combined chlorine to reduce immediate chlorine demand. This is what I would choose as B. So A would be wrong. B is what I'll choose, and I'll explain it in a second. C, add additional alkalinity to stabilize pH during nitrification. Maybe, but I don't have enough information to know that, and that might be something that fixes the underlying cause. D, reduce sludge wasting to increase nitrifier population. Maybe, but that might be an underlying cause. Which action can temporarily improve disinfection capability? Adding anhydrous ammonia, what you can do there. So say I'm adding free chlorine, right? free. And we talked about this. It's a 5-to-1 demand that nitrite has on chlorine. So every 1 part of nitrite is going to take 5 parts of chlorine. It's awful when you find yourself in this situation. So what you can do is actually add ammonia in some way, shape, or form. I happen to use anhydrous ammonia. You would add ammonia to form chloramines. They are less susceptible to nitrite. They are still susceptible, but less susceptible. So what I'm doing is I'm temporarily improving the disinfection capability. Got to be careful, especially if you've got ammonia limits. Seems a little counterintuitive, right? But the example I like to use when I'm explaining this to people is, in my drinking water system, we use chloramines for drinking water. And when I have nitrification in the summer months starting to occur, it's something I combat all year, and then at some point it rears its head and I've got to breakpoint chlorinate my tank, right? But one of the indicators of nitrification happening in my drinking water tank is a chlorine residual that is dropping. I have never seen a chlorinated drinking water tank, personally, get anywhere below a 0.2 or 0.3. They hold up okay, but knowing that my residual is normally a 1.5 milligram per liter in that tank, and it drops down to a 0.6 over the weekend, that tells me that the nitrifiers are hard at work, screwing me over, and now I'm behind the 8 ball, but it's not a 0. Okay? If it was free available chlorine, however, I would be willing to bet you it would go disappear. So the chloramines are just less susceptible to that immediate nitrite reduction. So that's just something to know. But A, C, and D could all be long-term fixes. Okay? I got another thing here. Sun says chloramine gives protection from long-term contamination. Yep, that's a good one. Chloramines last longer, is what he's saying. Sun says, sir, how much free chlorine is allowed as per the code you followed there? Here in India, we have a 0.2 milligram per liter as residual. So it depends. What's your permits say? So I discharge to the ocean. If I go over a 0.12, it violates it's not a violation, it's an exceedance of my 6-month median. And if I go over 0.12, I think it's a 1.8. I need to go and look at I'm always a non-detect, so it's, for the most part. So it's, I should know my own limits, but I think it's a 1.8 is an automatic fine. Well, it's not a fine, it's an automatic notice of violation. But I worked in a reclaimed water plant that we went to a golf course, we went to a vineyard, and the regulation was I could have no less than a 0.5 milligram per liter and no more than a 5 milligram per liter, because I was required, since it was reclaimed water, I was required to maintain a disinfectant residual. So the answer to your question, son, is it depends. The permit and what you're doing is largely what it's dependent on. But I can run as high a chlorine residual as I want in my contact basin. In full disclosure, I popped a coliform sample last week, and I'm expecting the one I took on Monday to pop too, because I didn't know I had an issue before I took this other sample. And I run under what's called a 7-sample median, 7 SM, and I'm allowed 23 MPN per 100 milliliters. Okay, and so what that means is I'm allowed in a 7-sample series, I'm allowed 3 samples above 23. Okay, so if this sample from Monday comes back hot with over 23, okay, I've used 2 of my mulligans, right? But now I'm not taking any chances. So I went in and I increased my chlorine residual. I can't really do anything about my contact time, but I've increased my chlorine residual to much higher than I normally would, and I've cleaned my contact basin out. Because it's like, okay, well, I don't really know why I had a chlorine residual. I'm not sure why I popped these, but I did. And so now I'm going to run a higher than normal chlorine residual while and what's cool about that is I dechlorinate. So that I can run as high a chlorine residual as I want, but I'm dechlorinating as I leave. So long as my effluent chlorine is not off the charts, should be good, okay? And these are the numbers I have. A 6-month median of 0.12, I think it was, and 1.8 automatic notice violation on total chlorine. Now, once I get kind of in a good spot with my chlorine, and I know we're good, everything's fine, I'm gonna bring it back down slowly, bring it back down to where I normally operate. See, I didn't do anything to my chlorine residuals were normal. My chlorine residuals, it's not like this situation with nitrite lock where I had no chlorine. I had plenty of chlorine, but for some reason I blew my coliform samples. So it's like, well, aside from cleaning out the contact basin and increasing my chlorine residual temporarily until we can, make sure we're getting non-detects on those, I could not tell you why I blew it, because my NTU was like 0.1. I had 0.1 NTU turbidity. So it's like, well, the water was really clear. I'm still scratching my head, but this happens. This happens. In my member live stream, by the way, I'm going to talk about notices of violation. I'm going to talk about this type of stuff. I'm going to have some real talk with the chief operator members. So if you want to join me for that live stream, I'm going to do it the last week of February. Get on there with me, and we're going to have some conversation about NOVs. Chat. Sorry about that tangent I just went on. Let's see what we got here. If it moves about 0.2, it will make water bitter, and we have to do dechlorination. Makes treatment uneconomical. Sir, I want to know, is this civil engineering subject which semester? Oh, yeah, no, dude, this is test prep for your grades 4 and 5 and Class A. This is not civil engineering, which might be where our disagreement on that trickling filter solids contact comes from, is you might be looking at it from an engineering standpoint. I'm talking about ops, and so maybe we're looking at it through two different lenses, which we really shouldn't be, but no, this is not civil engineering. This is just test prep for wastewater treatment ops. Okay, next one. Which of the following is not a recommended process adjustment when excessive nitrite is present in the effluent? Which is the following is not recommended? A, verify that supplemental carbon, if used, is being properly dosed and mixed to support complete denitrification. B, evaluate for potential toxicity or industrial discharges that may be selectively inhibiting nitrite oxidizing bacteria. C, increase internal recycle rates to return more nitrate-rich mixed liquor to the anoxic zone for further reduction. D, increase primary clarifier sludge removal rates to reduce organic loading on the biological process and starve out autotrophic bacteria, which is not recommended if you have excessive nitrite. Well, you would, just for the sake of time, I'm going to just tell you it's D. That makes no sense. D makes no sense at all. A, B, and C are all things you would do if you had excessive nitrite in the effluent. The increased primary fire sludge removal rates, I mean, you wouldn't, to starve out autotrophic bacteria, that just is, no. You wouldn't remove BOD to like that, like carbonaceous BOD. You wouldn't remove it to starve out autotrophic bacteria. And you don't want to starve out autotrophic bacteria because they're the ones, nitrifiers and the ones that convert nitrite to nitrate are autotrophic. So yeah, you would not do D. D is not right. Which of the following statements about chlorinating the RAS is not true? You hear about chlorinating the RAS. I have done it. I only recommend doing that in extreme situations, okay? There's a lot of other things you can do before you start nailing things with chlorine. But A, RAS chlorination is commonly used to increase nitrifier activity during periods of nitrite accumulation. B, excessive RAS chlorination can damage flock-forming bacteria, leading to poor settling and increased effluent TSS. C, RAS chlorination can help control filamentous organisms by selectively suppressing their growth in the return stream. D, RAS chlorination is typically applied at low doses and monitored closely to avoid disrupting the biological community. And the correct answer on this one is A. RAS chlorination is commonly used to increase nitrifier activity. No, it's not. It's just not a true statement. The rest of these are true. Excessive RAS chlorination will screw up your process. Don't do that. Yeah, there's a lot I have to say about chlorinating the RAS, and maybe on that live stream in February I can, get a little bit more real with you guys and talk about it, because it's, yeah, if not done right, I've just seen some operators do some crazy stuff. But B, C, and D are true statements. Let's do some math. Man, going on a journey here. Let me stretch a little bit. So I've only got 5 math problems for you guys, because if you passed your grade 3 or your Class B, you should be good. But these math problems take it to a different level, okay? What they do is they're going to give you scenarios, very similar math problems than what you saw in your grade 3, but they package them a little differently. And what they're going to do now to you is they're going to break the steps up into multiple different math problems. And so if you miss a step on the problem before and you go to the next step, or if you miss that problem and you go to the next step, that wrong answer is part of the new step, and you're going to get that one wrong, and then the next one wrong. So it's not so much that it got harder, it's that there's more steps. Christian says this on his YouTube channel, California Wastewater. It's not that there's necessarily, they're harder, it's just that there's more steps. So let's do the first one. This is a reversed food to microorganism ratio, all right? And this is how it goes. An activated sludge wastewater treatment plant averages flow of 4 mgd with an influent BOD concentration of 220 milligrams per liter. The aeration basin has a total volume of 1.2 mg. Plant experience has shown that the biological process performs best when the F/M ratio is maintained between a 0.1 and a 0.15. What is the maximum concentration of MLSS that should be in aeration while staying within optimal F/M range if the volatile portion of the MLSS is 80%? Okay, we're looking for MLSS concentration. So let's start with what we know. And I'm going to do it like Christian does it. There's another way to do this. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to do like Christian does it. I think it's just way more straightforward. Plant experience has shown that the biological process performs best when the F/M ratio is maintained between 0.1 and 0.15. Maximum. So this means I need the lowest F/M ratio because it's the maximum MLSS concentration. Dang, son. Sun Oneflower got it already. Shoot, man. I'm not even done explaining the premise and he solved it. What are you doing on here? That was great, man. Thank you. If you want to know what the correct answer was and you're working it out on your own, Sun has put it in the live chat. He got it right. Okay, so what we're going to do here, this is how Christian does it. And so I'm stealing your, if you're watching, I'm stealing your method. 1 divided by 0.1. Why am I doing that? Because we have a food to microorganism ratio. So 1 divided by 0.1 is 10. Why is this number important? Because for every 1 pound of BOD coming into the plant, I have 10 pounds of MLVSS, mixed liquor volatile suspended solids. That's an F/M ratio, right? So now what I need to do is take, I'm just going to do a pounds formula, 4 mgd times 8.34 pounds in a gallon of water times 220 milligrams per liter. I got an all caps thing from Sun here. Civil engineering, wastewater engineering is in our 3rd semester. Are you, sounds like you're a college student, son. Cool, yeah. So if this is fresh in your mind, this is pretty simple stuff for you. So this is our pounds formula on BOD. 4 times 8.34 times 220 milligrams per liter is 7,339. It's 0.2, but I'm just gonna drop that 0.2. Pounds of BOD, okay, per day. Say that per day. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take these pounds, 7,339 times 10, okay, times 10. That is 73,392. Oh, sorry, 73,339. I just didn't take the 0.2 out of my calculator. Hold on, 7339 times 10, 73,390. Sorry, guys. Again, I'm doing it live, so I'm messing up and you guys will be okay with that. Pounds MLVSS. Okay, next. The aeration basin has a total volume of 1.2 million gallons. We've got a volatile ratio of the MLSS is 80%. So what I'm going to do first here is I'm going to get my pounds of MLSS. And then we're just going to do a reverse pounds formula and we're done. So 73,390. And if you did 0.2, this would be, if you didn't drop the 0.2 off, this would be 73,392. You times, divided by 0.8. Sorry, divided by 0.8 will give me my MLSS in pounds. 0.8. And that's 91,737.5. I'll just say 737. I just dropped the 5 off. 91,737 pounds of MLSS. I'll explain in a second, son. 91,737 pounds of MLSS. And so now I'm just going to do a reverse pounds formula. 91,737 divided by 8.34 pounds in a gallon divided by 1.2 mg. That's the aeration basin, okay? Mg. 91,737 divided by 8.34 divided by 1.2. 9166.3, 9167, depends on how you rounded. 9166 milligrams per liter is your answer. Okay, let me answer Sun's question. Sir, why to use MLSS over MLVSS? The answer is because this is how it's going to show up on the test. I've seen it both ways. You might have to figure out your concentration of MLVSS and you might have to figure out your concentration of MLSS. Remember, this is test prep. That's pretty much all I got for you is I'm preparing people for an exam. You know, and I'm going to be honest from a practical standpoint, Sun, I don't necessarily monitor my MLVSS the same way I monitor my MLSS. So when I'm doing an F to M ratio, I have a pretty consistent 90%, 85 to 90% volatile solids in my aeration basin. It's pretty constant. And so I can get a good idea of what my F to M ratio is by running a certain MLSS. That's just practical. Maybe not textbook, but it's practical. And everybody, you need to know how to convert that pounds of MLVSS into milligrams per liter. I've seen it both ways. And all you would do in that situation is if you have pounds of MLVSS, you just wouldn't convert it to MLSS, and you do this reverse pounds formula up here. That's it, if you wanted milligrams per liter. So I hope that answers your question, Son. Okay, next one. A wastewater treatment plant is treating 3.5 mgd of influent with an average BOD5 concentration of 280 milligrams per liter. Lab results show the influent contains only 4.6 milligrams per liter of total nitrogen. The plant will supplement nitrogen using aqueous ammonia, which has a strength of 40% and delivers 9% nitrogen by weight. The solution and weighs, wow, my proofreading. The solution weighs 10.8 pounds per gallon. Get that out of there. How many gallons per day will be required? So you need to know something about this. This is a kind of not a trick, but there's something embedded in here that you need to know. For proper bacterial growth, you need what's called 100 to 5 to 1. 100 parts BOD or carbon or whatever to 5 parts nitrogen, nitro, to 1 part phosphorus, okay? You need to know that in order to solve this math problem, okay? So I'm going to show you something called cross multiplication if you're not familiar with it. Very simple. If I've got a ratio like this, I'm just going to take 105. It's not. You don't have to solve it as fast as you can, Son. I'm just going to do this for people because I got to get back to work. So you go ahead and you can pause this if you want to work it out without me talking. But I'm going to keep going. 100 divided by 5, and then times. What am I looking for? I've got 4.6 milligrams per liter total nitrogen, and I've got 280 milligrams per liter BOD. So I have a feeling that my nitrogen's not high enough, just from context clues. There's not much I can do about my BOD, except for treat it. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take 280 milligrams per liter BOD, and what's missing is my nitrogen, my total nitrogen, if I was to achieve a 100 to 5 ratio. And how you solve this is cross multiplication. 5 times 280 is 1400 divided by 100. So why is that? When you cross multiply, you cross the denominator and the numerator, and then you divide these top numbers, okay? And that should give this number down here, which is 14. I'll show you a different way to do it, okay? 100 divided by 5 means if I were just to do that on my calculator, for every 1 part of nitrogen, I should have 20 parts of BOD. So I have 280 milligrams per liter BOD, 280 divided by 20 is what? 14. Same number, same exact number. Do it however you want. I don't care. But I cross multiply because that's how I was taught in school. So I need 14 milligrams per liter of nitrogen, of total nitrogen. And I currently have 4.6. So what I'm going to do is go 14 minus 4.6. I'm just going to come over here. I'm sorry if it's all over the place. That's just what it is. Minus 4.6 is 9.4. That's my deficit. 9.4 milligrams per liter. Now what I'm going to do is come down here and say I need to know how many pounds, how many gallons of this aqueous ammonia to put into the wastewater to get my 100 to 5 ratio. So 3.5 times 8.34, what's 3.5? 3.5 mgd, okay? It's a pounds formula, times 9.4 milligrams per liter. Just real quick, 3.5 times 8.34 times 9.4 is 274.3. I'll just call it 274. pounds per day of nitrogen needs to be put in. But I've got aqueous ammonia, that's what I'm using, okay, which is 40% strength, but delivers 9% nitrogen by weight. What do I need out of that? I need that 9% nitrogen by weight. I don't care how strong it is. What's important to me is the nitrogen. That's what I'm adding. The 40% is a red herring. So I'm gonna say, if you go back and look at my chlorine disinfection video I did last week, I get into the unit cancellation in this math problem. I'm not gonna do it right now for the sake of time. I'm just gonna do it just straight across. So what I'm gonna do is say 274 divided by 0.09 divided by 10.8 pounds per gallon. Where'd that come from? That's its weight, okay? Go watch that video that I did last week, chlorine disinfection. I do the unit cancellation in there, so it kind of makes sense. So 274 divided by 0.09 divided by 10.8 is 281.8, I'll call it 282 gallons per day. That's how you solve this math problem. And let's see, Sun got it, 282.29. Yeah, we probably just rounded differently. I mean, 0.4 gallons in a day is not much of a difference. It comes down to a rounding difference between you and me, Sun. So Sun got it right, very good. And that's how you solve that math problem. Okay, 3 more math problems. A belt filter press produces 60 wet tons per day of cake at 18% total solids. Polymer solution is fed at 30 gallons per hour. The press runs 20 hours per day. The polymer solution contains 0.5% active polymer by weight. Find pound of active polymer dose per day per dry ton of cake solids, pound per dry ton. Okay. First, what I like to do is calculate my pounds of polymer per day, because that's the first. It's pounds of polymer dosed per day per dry ton of cake. So let's do that first. Polymer is fed at 30 gallons per hour, 30 gallons per hour. And I'm not gonna do the fancy unit conversions. I'm just gonna go through it. If you don't understand the conversions, pop me a comment, shoot me an email, look at some of my other math problems. I do the unit conversions when I'm not live streaming. Times 20 hours per day. So 30 gallons per hour, sorry, not gallons per day, that was just me misspeaking. 30 gallons per hour times 20 hours per day is 600 gallons per day. Now, be careful. If you get 3 GPM at 20 hours per day, you need to convert it to gallons per hour. If you get 30 GPM, don't just jump to 20 hours per day. It's gonna be way too small. You need to do, you need to make sure you're right. So if they gave me a polymer solution feed rate at 0.5 GPM, I would have to multiply that by 60 minutes in an hour to get the 30 gallons per hour, okay? So this is where I feel like knowing the pounds formula through and through is like the biggest, this makes this math so easy. So what am I gonna do? I'm gonna divide by 1,000,000, okay? And so 600 divided by 1,000,000, 0.0006 MGD. Okay, now I just got to do a pounds formula. I got my pounds of polymer. 0.5%. Don't ever forget, 1% equals 10,000 milligrams per liter. Now you can see a pounds formula shaping up. 0.0006 MGD times 8.34 pounds in a gallon of water times 5,000 milligrams per liter. Do this times 8.34 times 5,000 is 25, we'll just call it 25 pounds per day of polymer. But I need to figure out my dry tons, okay? So I've got 60 wet tons of cake at 18% total solids. I made this really easy by just giving you the wet tons, because I'm just more focusing on that polymer here. So 60 wet tons times 0.18 total solids, 60 times 0.18 is 10.8. Dry tons, okay? And so 25 pounds divided by 10.8 pounds per day, dry tons. 25 divided by 10.8 is 2.3. So I see 2.32 on, Sun got it right. And Sun's got an extra level of difficulty. We're using freedom units here, American units. He says, Google, by using Google, I'm converting units because here we use meter, kilogram, liter, not pound, gallon, feet. Well, boy, you got an extra level of difficulty, don't you? Yeah, I'm using the American units. We're special. We have our own units. Anyway, yeah, 2.32 is correct if you round. I got 2.3148, so if you were to round it, yeah, 2.32. This is how you do it. A wastewater treatment plant feeds an anaerobic digester 4,000 pounds per day of sludge with a volatile solids percentage of 60% into the digester. The digested sludge has a volatile solids percentage of 40%. The digester produces 13 cubic feet of gas per pound volatile solids destroyed. The CO2 content of the gas produced is 33% and 1% other gases. How many BTUs per day is produced from this digester? If you get 982 BTU per cubic foot of methane. Okay. First thing I like to do is get my volatile solids reduction. So I'm going to say the volatile solids reduction math equation is in a decimal form, in minus out. So 60% is in, 40% is out. In minus out divided by in minus in times out times 100. Okay, that's your volatile solids reduction. I'm actually not going to multiply by 100. I'm going to leave it in decimal form. So I'm going to, because I got to use that decimal. So 0.6 minus 0.4 is 0.2. 0.6 minus, and then you do these parentheses first, 0.24. Got to do the parentheses first. We'll screw the whole thing up if you don't. So this is going to be 0.2 divided by 0.6 minus 0.24 is 0.36. 0.2 divided by 0.36. 0.55 all the way continued, so I would say 0.556. It would be 55.6% volatile solids reduction, which is pretty good. And so that's my volatile solids reduction. Now, I've got 4,000 pounds a day of sludge with a volatile solids percentage of 60%. So I take now 4,000 pounds a day of sludge, but its volatile solids percentage is 60 times 0.6. My actual volatile solids being fed is 2,400 pounds. Now, what am I reducing from that? Let's bring it down here. I'm starting down here, guys. 2,400 pounds of volatile solids. What's my reduction? 55.6%, 0.556 is 1,334.4. I'll just call 1,334 pounds destroyed. All right, we're getting somewhere. Now, the digester produces 13 cubic feet of gas per pound destroyed. Okay, easy. 1334 times 13 cubic feet. $17,342 cubic feet of gas produced. Now, I hate this part of the math equation because it's like, why am I not just monitoring methane production? But they're wanting to make sure when you're taking a test that you understand that you have to take those other gases, CO2 and other gases, and subtract it from 100 to get your pure methane. So CO2 content of the gas is 33%, and we've got 1% other gases, so that's 34% total gas that is not methane. So now I'm going to take 100% minus 34%, and that gives me 66% pure methane. All right? So I take my total cubic feet of gas, 17,342, times 0.66, times 0.66 is 11,445 cubic feet. I can say 46, I'll round it up. 11,446 cubic feet of pure methane. And that's what actually gives you the energy, right? That's the actual usable energy for the BTU. So let's just take 11,446 times 982 BTU. 11,446 times 982 is 11,239,972. And it looks like Sun got, yeah, we pretty much got the right answer. When you're getting into these big BTU numbers, he got 11 million, I said 11,000, I'm so sorry. 11,234,080, and I got 11,239,972. 5,000 BTU is not very much. at all. So that's a rounding thing. And when you're taking these exams and you get the BTU math question, they're not going to have them that close together. That would be a rounding error. It's going to be millions apart, okay? Because British thermal units are, you know, I think it's, and anybody out there that might know this, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's like 40 to 60,000 BTU to heat a 2,000 square foot house, I think. So it's like, or I don't know if that's annual or what, but yeah, it's a lot of BTUs can add up. So yeah, that's how you do the BTU math problem. Is this our last one? Oh, last one, everybody. We're almost home. Whew. Take a drink, take a breather. Whew. Son, you can start on this one. I'm gonna take a break for a second. Okay, here we go. A belt press wow, false start. Five-yard penalty. Repeat first down. Okay, a belt press processes an average of 75 gallons per minute of sludge for 7.5 hours per day, 5 days per week, every week. The feed sludge has an influent TS concentration of 2.5% and the finished cake TS concentration of 20%. The capture efficiency is 90%. And the bulk density of the cake is 75 pounds per cubic foot. The belt press fills 20-yard rollaway dumpsters for shipment to the landfill. The contract price per dumpster is $350 per 20-yard rollaway. How much should the plant's annual budget be for rollaway dumpsters? Before I get into this, the answer to Son's question, do you allow calculators to solve these problems? Yes, you are allowed a calculator. Now, let me talk about the calculator. In California, I was actually very impressed with the calculator they gave me for the grade 5. Now, it's not scientific. You're not allowed to have any, it's just a basic 10-key calculator. Like actually I've got one right here. This is what you're gonna get. Very simple. You're not allowed anything other than this. Sometimes they're on the computer, and that is awful. I had to have that calculator on my T3, and I was clicking the buttons on the keypad. I've not seen that on the wastewater side, but I've heard of people getting that when they go to the testing center. I would call ahead and ask if you're going to be given a calculator that's physical like this. I find this better. But if you're not going to be given one of those, I just recommend you get used to doing it on the computer, because it is what it is. It used to be that you could bring your own, and they would just make sure that you didn't have a scientific one that had, you know, equations saved in it and stuff. But I never really understood saving equations, because they give you a conversion sheet. You're allowed a conversion sheet. They give it to you. And so anyway, let's read this one. Oh, we already read it. Let's talk about this. We are trying to budget an annual budget for rollaway dumpsters. So first thing I'm going to figure out is my pounds per year fed to my belt press in million gallons per year. Sorry, not million gallons per year, in pounds per year. Sorry, I'm getting tired. It's been a long, I said it was gonna be an hour and a half, and here we are at 2 hours. I just can't help myself. All right, 75 GPM, gallons per minute, times 60 minutes in a day, or sorry, minutes in an hour. Jeez, I'm getting tired. Times 7.5 hours in a day that's being used. Be careful. 7.5 hours per day is this belt press is in operation. Don't multiply by 24. Okay. Times 5 days per week, times 52 weeks in a year. I'm looking for an annual budget. You might get this in monthly, you might get this in weekly, I don't know how it's gonna show up, or if you even get it. I don't think I've ever seen this math problem on an exam, but that does not mean you don't need to know it. Remember, there's different exam versions. You need to know how to do this. I just didn't happen to get this. So 75 times 60 times 7.5 times 5 times 52. What did I just do? 75 gallons per minute times 60 minutes in an hour times 7.5 hours in a day times 5 days in a week times 52 weeks in a year gives me, so I'm reading this right, 8,775,000 pounds per year fed to this belt press. Okay? Now, let me just make sure that I'm not pounds per year. I'm so sorry. I'm getting tired. I'm sorry. I was a misspeak. Million gallons per year. Ugh. Thankfully, I wrote notes down because I anticipated this happening. It happened on my grade 3 where I started getting tired and saying things wrong, so I apologize for that. This is just the flow rate. 8,775,000 gallons per gallons per year. Again, I'm doing it again. To get million gallons per year, I'm going to divide by a million. Okay, let me just bring it down here. That gives me 8.775 million gallons per year. I'm so sorry if that confused people. Like I said, I'm getting fatigued. So when I do all that math across the top, 8,775,000 gallons per year divided by a million gives me 8.775 million gallons per year, okay, which I will round up to 8.78. Let me see here. Looks like Sun has solved it already, but I'm just going to keep going here. All right. So I have a 2.5% concentration. Remember, that's what in the feed sludge. Remember, 1% equals 10,000 parts per million. So with that, I'm going to do a pounds formula. 8.7, I'll just start right here. 8.78 million gallons per year times 8.34 pounds in a gallon times 25,000 milligrams per liter. Because 2.5% is the influent TS concentration. So multiplied by 10,000 is 25,000, okay? And that gives me 1,830,630 pounds of feed sludge per year. Okay? Now I have a 90% capture efficiency. Let's bring it down here. Okay? 1,830,630 times 0.9 is what do I have here? 1,647,567 pounds of cake coming off of that. This is actually dry cake. Okay, this is dry cake. This is not wet cake. We have to convert to wet cake. So my feed solids is 1,830,630. I have a capture efficiency of 90%, so I multiply by 0.9, and the solids coming off the belt press are 1,647,567 pounds per year. But that's assuming it's 100% dry, which we know it's not. It is 20% dry. Okay, so now I'm going to divide this number, 1,647,567, divided by 0.2. And this is going to give me my wet cake, the stuff that's actually going into the dumpster. Okay, so if I were to do that, that should give me 8,237,835 pounds per year of wet cake. Now we went to the lab, it says it in the math problem, we went to the lab, and it says we have the bulk density of the cake is 75 pounds per cubic foot. Okay, we have our pounds, let's convert it to cubic feet. Let's come down here. 8,237,835 pounds. And then we're just going to do a unit conversion here. I like to do this method. This is not cross multiplication, by the way. This is called the conversion factor method. I just happen to put a multiplication sign right there. Some people do the railroad tracks where it looks like this. I've done a whole video on it. Go check it out. Per cubic foot. So I'd multiply across the top, divide across the bottom. That gives me 8,237,835 divided by 75 gives me 838 cubic feet of cake. But I've got 20-yard rollaway dumpsters, so we got to convert to yards now. We're going to do that same exact thing where I've got 27 cubic feet in a yard. Okay, cubic feet cancel, and that leaves me with 4,068 yards per year. Yards per year, okay? Now I gotta say, okay, so we're to cubic yards. Now, when you hear us say yards, I'm not talking about the distance measurement. It's cubic yards, okay? And I should specify that. There should be a cube here. But when you work in a plant, you work out in the construction, we don't call it a cubic yard. We call it a yard. Give me a yard of base. Give me a yard of this. Give me a yard of that. It's a 20-yard dumpster, okay? Just the vernacular. So now I know how many cubic yards I have. I divide by 20 cubic yards per dumpster, okay? per dumpster. And that should give me 203.4. Let me just do it in my calculator to make sure I'm not messing anything up here. I'm relying on my notes, so if I button mash something earlier, sorry. 203.4, but guess what? I can't buy a fractional dumpster, right? So it's got to be 204 dumpsters. They will have this wrong answer. If you do 203.4 times $350, they'll have that as one of the choices. Make sure you don't try to buy a fractional dumpster. That's not a thing. You would round it up to the next nearest dumpster. So 204 times 350 is $71,400. So that's 204 times 250, or sorry, 350. Okay, $350 per dumpster. You need 204 dumpsters. Let's see. Sun says in our currency, 71,000. Yeah, it's a lot of money, man. It's a lot of money. And so yeah, I see you did the 71,151 on there. Just be sure that you're rounding up your dumpster, Sun, because yeah, we can't buy fractional dumpsters. You have to kind of eat that last dumpster. And it says we can use cake to generate electricity and make it economical. Yeah, I'm sure you can. All the people I know send it to either a landfill or it gets composted. Not so much to make electricity. I think you might be thinking of biogas. Around here, it goes on livestock feedlot, like not the feedlot, but the food for livestock. It's soil amendments. It's used in all sorts of different like composting and fertilizer applications. That's where I would expect to see it done the most. But if it doesn't meet the standards, it goes to the dump. Okay, I don't know of anybody using it to make money. Okay, so yeah, I hope that helped. And he said, yes, sir, right. Yep. Okay, that's it, guys. Boy, that was a freaking marathon. So a couple quick notes before I let you all leave. Check out these resources. Ron Triger on Vimeo. Please look at him. He is so smart. Has all sorts of great videos. They're free. He's out of Florida. So those of you who are taking Florida exams specifically, but the WPI Class ABC, watch his stuff. It's gold. California Wastewater. I can't write. California Wastewater. That's Christian's channel. Math. Get your math down. That's the grades 1 through 3 is like awesome. And the grade 4 and 5 is great. That's where I learned the BTU calculation, but he never really finished it. Like I think he was going to do oxygen transfer efficiency and some other stuff, but I don't think he ever got around to it. But his channel is awesome. And then of course, my good friend Matt on operator mindset. He's out of Georgia, so he's going to have some insights for those out of, man, Mendest. My goodness, guys, I am just tired, so I'm sorry about the typos. I'm going to go take a nap after this. If you want to email me, Shawn at wastewaterenthusiast.com. And Son, that's how you would get a hold of me, Shawn at wastewaterenthusiast.com. Check out these other YouTube channels, guys. And the only one it looks like on this whole thing I might have made a mistake on is the trickling filter solids contact, which I'm going to go look at. I got to get back to work. I'm on my lunch break, so I'll look at it tonight. I'm going to do some research, and I will pin a comment after I get resolution as to whether I'm right, whether Son's right, or maybe we are both right, and I did not build that math problem or that problem correctly. Because if I gave 2 right answers, which is what I'm starting to wonder if I did, I will pin a comment. If you do not see a pinned comment, I just haven't gotten to it yet. Check out the links for the other live streams that I've done that will, for the grades 1 through 3, Class C, Class B, blah, blah, blah. And this is not the final one I'm doing, guys. I'm going to be doing a live stream, hopefully in March, that's the plan, to terminology for the grades 3 through 5. If you were watching some of this, you have no idea what I was talking about, that's going to be for you. It's going to be flashcard style. Sun says, thanks, sir. Nice session. You have morning. Is it morning there? Okay. Oh, I would imagine it is in India. Very good. And with that, everybody, thanks for joining, and we will catch you guys in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.